Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Justin the Food Entrepreneur Show. I'm Justin Bizzarro. I'm your host. That's Bizzarro. For anyone who's out there, you can find us on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and wherever else you want to find us. We are all out there. Me personally, the podcast, as well as Gorilla Brave. I won't go too far into Gorilla Brave. Everyone by now knows that it's out there. We are 458 episodes recorded in as we record this. So by the time that comes out, everyone will know that there are events, there are summits, there are entrepreneur communities, there's online communities. Everything that everyone's asked for of me over the last 6 years as we've done this podcast, we've consolidated educational low-hanging fruit, those beginning just in the game of entrepreneurship, in the food, beverage, farming space, hospitality, etc., nutrition. It's all on there on Instagram. There's low-hanging fruit, low knowledge that everyone asks for. Every episode has episode notes as well as transcripts, so anything educational, you guys can go through every episode and find the transcript and the notes. That'll help you guys where you want to jump around episodes and find what you're looking for. And then the community. So there is a private Facebook group. There is a business page. The private group is free. We do filter it. There are rules to be in the group. There is a facilitator, meaning it is free. It is for food, beverage, nutrition, hospitality, nutrition entrepreneurs. But we have rules just to keep things regulated because it is free. So you can go there too if you're looking for a community and the food and beverage space, talking to others in the space, seeing who else has been on the podcast, or being able to ask questions of those who have been on the podcast, possibly. That group is growing. So that's there for you guys. And then there's the elite group. That's the Gorilla Brave website. That's where you see the larger thing. That group is more committed. That group is the elite group. And they do pay money every month because, why does everyone ask? In that case, we are giving an elite level of coaching and consulting and bringing in elite level speakers and trainers that do cost money for the individuals in the group. That is not something that we just can take on and give to everyone because it is expensive, extremely. So that is why that structure's that way. So I think I've answered those questions and got straight to the point. With that being said, I have Alan Curtis with us from Fort Worth, Texas. Pitmaster Alan Curtis. Let me do a proper introduction here. How are you doing today, Alan?
Man, I'm doing fantastic. How you feeling?
Pretty good. I think Alan and I could probably talk forever in pre-recording, just killing time over anything. So I'm sure Alan and I are already probably going to do multiple podcasts just so we're letting everyone know we can conversate quite a bit. But I'm going to give the mic to Alan first. Alan, we're going to go all the way back to little AJ, since I believe are you the senior and you have a junior? Because based on your email, I didn't even ask before.
Yeah.
There we go.
Absolutely.
So we're going to go back to little AJ Junior. My sister's name is Anjanette, so we call her AJ quite a bit too. So I like the name. So let's go. Let's tell your story. Why food? Where'd you grow up? How'd you grow up? Let's really dive into this because barbecue is a tough business. But once you get into it, it's a fellowship. So let's tell the story.
Yeah. So I started cooking when I was 16. I mean, from 16 to, I want to say like 25, or not 25, 21, it was a very much like an on and off relationship. I never took it serious. I mean, like in high school, your teachers, your mom were like, you don't want to flip burgers your whole life. That's not who you want to be. I mean, I kept going to try different careers, truck driving. I tried at the oil field. I worked for the city laying asphalt. I worked warehouses. I really don't mind warehouses, but I always ended back up in a kitchen, whether it was Red Lobster, TJ Fridays. I mean, just various places. And then for whatever reason, when COVID hit, I really decided that, I had my son, it's time to hunker down, find a job. And for whatever reason, I was like, I'm going into barbecue. This is what I want to do. And I found a place, Patriotic Pig in North Richland Hills. They took me in, and I mean, I trained for like a week. Next thing you know, I was basically handed 2,000-gallon offsets, and it was like, all right, man, here's the recipe. Give me a pat on the back. It was like, you got this, big dog. And I mean, I love it. You know, I bounced when before that I bounced around from jobs, just never found love. But I started barbecuing. I mean, 70 to 80 hour weeks. I mean, show up at 4 a.m., leave at 9 p.m., do it again the next day. You know, cook the food, trim the food, season it, mess something up. You're terribly upset. Someone leaves a great review. You feel like you're on top of the world. You know, it's something that I love it. I absolutely love it. After
Where
patriotic,
did you grow up in the South barbecuing? Did the family barbecue? Like, let's go
yeah.
back to that for
So
a second because I'm just that it happened so. I mean, you're literally to me. I don't even know how to describe it. I love barbecue, but in a way, you're so young. You're literally going against the grain of what people usually discover the barbecue love later. So
oh
I want to just emphasize this. There's a something that happens, you're going into the Shark Tank, dude. You're like, I'm a little minnow, but I don't care. I'm jumping in, right? So I want to go back to
yeah,
that for a second.
yeah. So I think what it really was I mean my dad. You know, my dad had me on the weekends, and one thing, you know, I'd go over on the weekend and he would barbecue something up, whether it was beer can chicken or he threw on a brisket or whatever, and he had friends over. You know, they're all drinking beer, watching football, the guy stuff. You know, and I just, you know, I for a while there, my dad wasn't there, so I missed it. And then I think it became this thing like I, you know, had this weird personal thing where I wanted to make my dad proud, and for whatever reason, it rolled into doing professional barbecue. And as far as like, you know, just jumping into the fire, I think it just comes from playing football. My competitiveness. I'm very competitive. I I mean, I'm very competitive, and like when it comes to this barbecue stuff, I'm very detail oriented. I'm a bit of a psycho, and I'm very hard on myself.
There you go. That's what I was looking for. That part right there. That's the key. I don't think a lot of very successful individuals tend to be harder on themselves than the outside world could ever be on them. And while it beats us down, but when we look inward first to do better and analyze, we know everything about ourselves already, especially our defects.
Yes.
And
Yes.
so when someone else tells us our defect or criticizes us, sometimes it can be compounding on top of the million other things that we're trying to work on right then, especially during a growth period in life that we're talking about here. Let's go back to the football though, real quick. I'm sorry, I'm going to zigzag us a little bit here because I just want to anchor a couple things based on our pre-recording, but now I understand sort of the end point where it started. Let's talk about football. Let's talk about growing up in it, discipline, obedience, practice, playing, what position, what it meant to be part of a team. I think all those are wrapped up in it because I can tell it by your personality and your leadership skills. Go on.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I started playing football at the age of 4. I mean, I also played baseball and basketball growing up. I mean, when one sport ended, another sport started. I mean, all the way up through middle school. And then when I got into high school, it was just straight football. But I mean, I was definitely one of those Texas boys where, I mean, football is life. You know, if when the sun came up, I was running down the street, knocking on my friend's door, and we're either playing football in the front yard or we're playing basketball in the street. But I mean, as far as like, you know, me in the kitchen, and I can't help it, but like I always end up in a way leading people, it's because of football. You know, the way that I take criticism and the way I plan out my cooks and the way that I talk to people and I talk to my, you know, my coworkers and my teammates, it's very much because of everything that I learned in football.
Yeah. Let's go to the first job back to then. It's in North Carolina, you said. So you're in North Carolina barbecue country, as a Texas person, is because the decision on what type of barbecue probably matters. I'm not sure. You have to go in a direction. It's almost like spirituality. I almost have to choose one to get from point A to point B. But let's just talk about that. Like, how do you know which one you want to go to? How'd you pick that particular one? I think you said North Carolina.
Oh no, the first barbecue spot was in North Richmond Hills.
Oh, North Richmond Hills. I'm sorry. Okay, so we're still
Oh,
in
it's okay.
Texas. There
Yeah.
we go. That anchors it because I was a little confused there for a second. I couldn't make the leap. Okay. Sorry about that. Sorry, audience. Let's talk about, is it Texas barbecue? Is that what you're going after? Is that what your specialty is? And what is the definition of it? Let's define that as a pitmaster real quick.
Yeah, I
In
think
that first job. Go ahead.
so me going to Patriotic Pig, defining barbecue. I don't know, that's a little tough for me, but I just had no idea. I had
I love
no
it.
idea what I was getting myself into. You know, like it's just it's so hard to put into words. Like it really, really is. I just I don't know, man. Like I love it so much. I mean, for me now, barbecue is absolutely everything, and I could tell you like my favorite thing is when my family comes up. When I see other people, they don't just come by themselves. They're bringing their friends. They're bringing their family. You know, and then the next time I see them with their friends and family, and I'm their friend and family. Does that make sense? And like, you know, you see these barbecue places, and it's not necessarily tables, like individual seating. It's these big tables, and everybody's sitting together. You know, and it just kind of goes back to like my dad in the backyard cooking and everybody hanging out. That's just like the vibe I love.
Love this. All right, let's go from your first experience learning all of this. Like, you're thrown into the mix, you're learning this. You have a talent for it. Obviously, there's a seed planted here. You have a talent for leadership, or it was a seed planted that grew through football. Let's say it that way. Also, starting to cook at 16, starting to get that experience at a young age that led you to where you want to go. You're like, I want to do this. This is my purpose. This is my avenue. What do you learn at first? What are the lessons in let's look at it this way. Instead of anchoring it to barbecue, let's talk about life lessons sort of as you're going from one job to the next to where you are now. Let's walk that path. Let's talk about your job path. Let's talk
Yeah,
about going from an apprentice to a master, because that's what that we're talking about here in barbecue. It is that there's so many variables, guys, that happen in different ways of barbecuing as a whole, that the mastery is real. There's a lot of variables. So let's talk about the apprenticeship into your mastery.
yeah. So I mean, I could tell you right now that first barbecue job, man, was an absolute roller coaster. I mean, I started off in August at like $13 an hour, and I got fired in February, and I was making close to $20 an hour. You know, I could tell you right now, me when in that firing really is a fire that gets me going in the mornings. I mean, still to this day, I've me and the guy that fired me, we've made up, and I wish him the absolute best. But I mean, that competitiveness in me, I hope that dude does the absolute best. I hope he puts out the best food of his life. But that firing is what gets me going, and I'm like, I'm respectfully gonna kick his ass today. You know, I mean, that was tough, man. That was tough. I had a kid. I had a kid on the way. I was living in Section 8 apartments. And I mean, just learning personally that, you know, this can't be the end of this, right? Like I have to get up. I have to I have to keep going. And ultimately what saved me was there was a pitmaster that worked alongside me at Patriotic Pig. His name is Damon. I absolutely love the guy. I learned a lot from this guy. He ended up working at Hurtado Barbecue, and he gave me a call and he was like, "Bro, Hurtado's opening up in Fort Worth. Go, you need to walk in right now and tell them that you're going to be the pitmaster there." Same day, I walked in there. I walked in there and I was like, "Hey, Damon said I'm going to be the pitmaster here," and I was training the next day with them. There was like a good 2 to 3 month layoff. Just kind of feeling a little hopeless there for a little bit.
Yeah,
I'm not
humbling.
gonna lie to you,
There's probably
but
a humbling that went on
oh man,
preparing
a
you.
100%, 100%, 100%. It was the humbling was you are doing a good job. You are working very hard, but there are so many things that you don't know that you're messing up that you need to look at. And looking back at it, that's why I was fired. It had nothing to do with my hard work. It was just you're not good enough to be in the position that I have you in, respectfully. And that's just, I mean, that sucks. That sucks, but that's just the reality of it. He had to hand the reins over to somebody he felt was more qualified for the position I was in. You know, Respectfully, I'm better than that guy now, but that's not the point. And then, when I went to Hurtado was less food, but higher quality and more craft. So at that point, it was a lot more hands-on. I learned so much from Hurtado Barbecue. I mean, I cooked brisket every single day for a good year. And I mean, yeah, that's where I really started to put it all together.
What is that? What define that for me? Talk to me about life skills, barbecue skills, pitmaster skills. Everything kind of falls into place, I would say, for you here. What is define that for me? What is everything? What's the growth that's happening? It's probably a little bit painful. Growing pains are. Let's talk about
Yeah,
that.
yeah. I mean, I can say what's fun, what's crazy is like the growth through all of this. I started at the age of, how old am I now? At the age of 22, 23. Now I'm 28. I started with one kid. Now I have three kids. I started as, not knowing anything, and I went all the way to the GM of a restaurant. And the reason why I say all that is I've learned how to have a lot more patience. And it's not just with people, but like I have to teach myself to calm down. Don't get ahead of yourself. Don't, like, for instance, like when I get to work in the morning on a Saturday at Roy Hutchins, I have 150 to 180 briskets that I have to cook, and I have to get them off these pits so I can load the proteins for the day. Okay, the reason why I say I've learned patience is because you're going through your touch. I have to treat every brisket like an individual thing. I can't just pull 30 briskets off altogether because 12 of them might not be ready. And that's going to be the difference between a customer's good experience and bad experience. You know? Now, if I was at Patriotic Pig, I might have pulled all those briskets at once and treated them as a group rather than an individual. So I've learned that patience with myself, and I've been able to take that home and have patience with my kids, and just understand that my expectations for my son might not be the reality of his life, if that makes sense.
100%. Let's continue your journey. Let's continue from Hurtado to what's next. Where do you go? What happens from here?
Yeah, so Hurtado Barbecue, that was a great experience. I started off as the night cook, and then they opened up the night shift. So originally they were only open 11 to 5. No, 7 to 5, because they do breakfast there, barbecue breakfast. And then they opened up the night shift. When they opened up the night shift, I was managing the night shift and cooking at the same time. And then eventually I took over as the GM. I loved it there, but I met a guy named Zach Hutchins and Israel Silva, and I quickly became pretty good friends with those guys. And Zach told me that they were opening a restaurant in Trophy Club, Texas. and that I should be, I should join it. And ultimately, I decided to leave Hurtado for the simple fact that, I mean, Zach is my boss, Israel's my boss, but they're the exact same age as me, and they're in the exact same spot of life, and they have the exact same want to be great. So, like, our trajectory in life is the same. So I ended up leaving and going to Roy Hutchins, and it's just been an absolute. I think I've been there for a year now. I think we're creeping up on a year, and it's been absolutely awesome. Right now, we are getting ready because we just became the official barbecue for Texas Motor Speedway. And so next week we will start cooking for NASCAR.
Well, there's a good place to have barbecue, right? I don't think of a better audience than NASCAR. Fried chicken, barbecue, beer, for sure.
You know, just absolutely. Yeah, it's going to be a blast. And another place we're also opening up in Arlington, Texas. I think a little bit over a mile away from Cowboy Stadium, Texas Rangers Stadium. And that one's going to be an absolute blast because in 2026, what is it? The World Cup goes to Arlington, and then they also have F1
Yep.
that's going to drive through Arlington.
Yeah,
So
both.
that experience is going to be absolutely nuts as well.
Well, let's talk about this. So they're already on to another location or multiple locations. You started from day one with them. I want to talk about this. So you're literally now having to build a menu, build barbecue. You get to do it what you guys want. It's not like you sort of, maybe you had some freedom before, but it was an established brand, an established restaurant. There's a difference here now, right? What is,
Yeah,
so what does that look like now for you? Because now you're in a more of a, maybe a creative spot. I don't know.
yeah. So I will tell you that I didn't start day one with them. I kind of got cold feet. It was like, I was wrong. I was wrong. I should have been there day one. I tell them this often. I just got cold feet. I got 2, 3 kids, and when I told my boss that I was going to go to Trophy Club, Roy Hutchins at Hurtado, next thing you know, I was the GM. So I took that. I took advantage of that opportunity rather than showing up on day one. And then, I saw them again at the Syndicate Smoke down in Fort Worth, and they were just like, "Dog, you should be here. We're like, we got plans, man. Like, you got to join." And that's when I jumped. As far as like the creativity and doing new things, it's still very much the Hutchins way. Like, they have a tradition in a way that they do things, but yes, we are there are things that we do different. And like, for example, we try to do a monthly sausage. And my man Israel, he made a, what is it called? A bratwurst sausage, and it is absolutely delicious. I know for Texas Motor Speedway, instead of, serving the traditional barbecue, it's more of like a sausage on a stick, chopped barbecue sandwich, Texas Twinkie, instead of like the sliced brisket, the sliced ribs, the sides. It's going to be more handhelds. And I know they're going to try to spice that up to make it more attractive as time goes on.
Awesome. I love this. What's your favorite part? Like every day doing what you do, being in the barbecue. I know you love barbecue, but there's a lot more than that. There has to be more to the environment. You mentioned the people around you being the same age and the same place in life. Why is that important? All of these things, because I want to anchor all of this. There's values here.
Okay. So in all of my barbecue experience here, and this isn't to, talk bad on anybody, but this is the first time in my restaurant life that I felt like if I showed up and I give these guys 100%, that they're going to take care of me. These guys have taken care of me more than any other restaurant has taken care of me. They have given me more than anybody has ever given me. I mean, I've had more things happen in this last year of just life. My kid started school. We've all been sick, 3,500 times because he's bringing everything home. And it's all because they're all like, yeah, like, I get it, dude. My kid's sick. It's all good. Just, get me back on Tuesday. They understand that, like, if I make them money, I know they're gonna take care of me. Like, that, and they know that they're gonna get taken care of. So, like, there's this competitive drive to make more money. And when you want to make more money in a restaurant, what are you gonna do? You're gonna put out a better service. Like, I mean, the quality that goes on at Roy Hutchins is honestly pretty nuts to me, because the quantity of food that we put out is absolutely nuts. I mean, to put out 180 briskets and to say that maybe what, 2 to 3 briskets were overcooked is awesome. And then, like, when the customer comes in, they're greeted. They meet the cutters, and they're meeting some of the best cutters in the barbecue game. So everybody sees this line out the door, and they're like, man, this is going to take 30 to 45 minutes. Nah, man, we got 4 cutters at the block. You'll be through the line in 15 minutes. Like, there's just a level of quality. Like, it's just different when you're going to be taken care of.
Well, and they've
It's
thought about
just,
the process, how to move the line along, where are the cues building up in their processes, and how do we fix it from both a culinary standpoint and a service standpoint, it sounds like. And
yeah. And
that's key in any business. Where are your cues? What are the processes in your restaurants that are holding up progress or customers? Anyway, go
man,
ahead.
they're smart, and it's been very eye-opening to sit back and to watch how these things happen and what makes them. I mean, okay, for instance, when I was GM, we were so happy that we did like a $12,000 day. We'd be like, man, that's a great day. Good job, everybody. We're all dog tired. Now, also, the scale is so much more smaller. Okay, I get that. When I come over to Roy Hutchins, they're like, all right, guys, I think today's going to be like a $45,000 day. And I'm like, oh my God, how are we, going to do this? And sure enough, I mean, we've done $70,000 days, $80,000 days, and then it just goes so smooth, like, without a hitch. And it's just like experience in the barbecue game. Roy, Wes, and Zach, they've been doing it forever, and they just understand how things work. So it's pretty awesome to just sit back and watch and to learn the process of the business of barbecue.
Yeah, it's a necessary journey, I believe, because if you're good enough, meaning you've developed the skills or are long enough, what you've also need to develop is the ability to handle the volume of customers that happens in barbecue when you are good enough. And people are like, oh, that's one of these things. No, barbecue is one of those things that can't display life more. It is a constant education forever till you die if you are in the game. And most people that are lovers of barbecue that are in the game, including food entrepreneurs or restaurateurs that helped build the industry in the first place decades ago, because Texas barbecue's not ancient. We're not ancient.
Yeah,
They
yeah,
built an
no,
industry, these guys, and their experience, it continues to build an industry in skills, guys. The most impressive lines that I've ever seen, handling cues, understanding how to push processes through and generate volume in business in a small location. I don't know any other better group than what barbecue does, particularly. I mean, Chinese food restaurants, they somehow can take 100 ingredients and create 1,000 items. So there's something there too, but this is something where you guys are cooking a long time. You're talking about 1,000 briskets. Like, there's a lot of management of all of this, or 100 or whatever it ends up being. Let's talk about from a pitmaster standpoint, from a volume standpoint, all of the proteins you're managing, the different styles of cooking in the restaurant. things like that. How do you manage the volume? How do you manage the different proteins, the sausages, maybe the chicken, whatever you guys offer? We can talk about the menu in more detail if that helps. But let's dive into that a little bit, because that's a lot of being a master, being able to manage a lot of variables going on at the same time.
Yeah. So we have a total of 10 pits. So we have 5 offsets, and then we have 5 M&M rotisseries. I mean, I could just tell when I show up, I'm typically stalking my fires. My fires are already going because we have a night shift. We have people that are managing the fires overnight. They're babysitting the briskets, they're wrapping the briskets when they're ready, and they're prepping the proteins for the next day, like trimming the ribs, cutting the pork belly, stuff like that. So when I come in, I'm throwing wood on the fires. But for me, I'm not just like grabbing a log and throwing it on. I'm paying attention to the kind of logs I'm throwing on, just because I'm prepping my fires for when I throw my turkey and my ribs on at 6 o'clock. I typically get there at 4 a.m. And hopefully by 6 a.m. I have a decent amount of brisket off. And then once 6 a.m. hits, man, it's like I walk in big circles all morning between, like, I'll throw chicken on, I'll shut the door, go check on my fires, come back, check in brisket, go back, check the fires, go into the prep room, start seasoning my turkey and my ribs for the next load. Like it's movement. Like, you're moving the entire time. You're checking something the entire time. That doesn't mean every hour I'm opening up, my cooking door. It's just like like checking the fires. Okay, this brisket's at 180. It's probably going to be another 45 minutes to an hour before I need to check it again. It's a lot. It is a lot, but I mean, at the same time, it's not. I mean, I absolutely I love it. Like, there's days, like, I think Sunday mornings I'm by myself, and it's 150 briskets, 80 racks of ribs all to myself. And it's just like, are we going to get this done today or not? And we get it done every single time, and it's an absolute blast.
I love it. I want to anchor something for the audience. From your perspective, talk to me about, you talk about these guys are loyal to you. They will take care of you. You will grow with them. That they believe in you. That you're with the right group. As entrepreneurs, or anyone in the food game, that's what we want always. We want to have that type of business. We want to have the employees, the teammates, the whatever we look at it, however we look at it, that do feel that way about us. I mean, I would hope most of us feel that way. I don't know about everyone, but that employees aren't just generating money. There's more there to it. Why the difference? How would you say that where you are now is so different? Obviously, and I will say it because we talked about it, the difference isn't a few $100s, guys. The difference is thousands of dollars. The way everyone is treated in this business is the result of the difference of 16,000 a day, which is a lot. You're like, holy crap, 12,000, holy moly, that's a lot of money in any business. But then when you're talking about 70 possibly, or 45, the multiplier there is not just processes, procedures, ability to handle volume. It has everything to do with the entrepreneurs leading the business. Because without that experience, without that energy, exposure, whatever it is that has created this environment, humans want to work for them. We're talking about it right now. So define that for me.
Yeah, so I mean, like I told you at the beginning, 70 to 80-hour weeks, right? That's how I got to the experience, and that's how I became a pit master. Is 70 to 80-hour weeks, and I gave that to my first 2 barbecue places. And I have not had to give that to where I'm at now. Like Roy Hutchins, I have not have had to give them 70 to 80 hour weeks. I haven't. And they're okay with that. They're not looking at me like, well, why didn't you do more? They're like, there's times where I'm like, okay, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna go prep this. I'm gonna go help somebody with this. And they're like, no, man, like, let them do their work. They want to get their hours in, let them do their work. And I'm just like, well, what am I supposed to do? you know? And that means something. That means that they want, the person that I was gonna go help, they want that person to go make their money. They want that person to get their hours in. You know, they want me to focus on the quality of the product that I'm putting out at all times. And that's why I say I'm kind of a psycho about it, because I do every day. Like I'll throw a load of ribs out. I'm tasting a rack of ribs because I know exactly how I pulled it. Same thing with the brisket. Sorry, I got the rambling. I get the rambling.
Keep rambling. You're on. This is good stuff here. No,
You
because
know,
all of it matters. They're letting you do your thing, but they're letting everyone perfect their area, but also allowing cross training. I'm assuming there's someone working when you're not working.
yeah, yeah. So I'm telling you, there's just something about being up there, man, and knowing that the more money that the company makes, it's the more money that everybody's gonna make. You don't always get that feeling. Like there's been places I worked at, and it's like, oh, we did so good today. Let's have a pizza party, guys. And it's not like that up here, man. Like if we're consistently doing great, you know what? Let's go open up another restaurant over there, and everybody that's been killing it, let's move them up. Let's have them train other people. You know, it's just like, for instance, I have my little brother works with me. He's not a pitmaster, but he's a cutter, and he has his own kid, and he's about to move up in this company, on his own path. And I can just see it in his face. He's like, yeah, I'm gonna go to work today. I'm gonna cover somebody's shift. It's his birthday today, and he's going to work because he knows he's gonna get taken care of. And he's 21. you know, it's so hard. It's an energy. It's a vibe. I mean, when I show up every day, this is also just who I am. Like when I show up, I tell my brother I love him. My kid's goddad, I also got him up there. I tell him I love him. When I leave, I give them a hug and I tell them I love them. When I first started there, it was only them two. Now when I leave, I'm hugging and telling like 10 to 12 people I love them on the way out. You know, and that's just the way this place is. We don't always get along. Israel and I, we're very hard-headed people. And, sometimes when you say things plainly, it's going to start a fight. And we've got into arguments. But Israel is my dog. Like, that is my man. I will go anywhere with him. I will cook anything for that guy because I know he trusts me. He trusts me to do great, but he also trusts me to make mistakes. And I think that's a big thing because he knows that he'll be there to tell me what I did wrong, and he knows that I will correct it. And I love having somebody that speaks plainly with me. Hey, because every day when I cook, I ask, how's everything looking? Oh, the brisket on the bottom was a little soft. The ribs had really good color, but you can tell that you could have cooked them just 15 minutes longer. The pulled pork looked great today. The chicken looked good, but the skin could have got a little crispier. That means so much to me. Because I want to make a living for my kids, but at the end of all this, I want to open up my own restaurant where I'm only working 2 days a week and people just want to come try my food, sell me out, and I make enough money to be happy. you know?
To me about legacy, the importance of your kids, having your own business, because this is all building towards a legacy. We talked about you're only 28 years old. So you're still building your game. You've got a lot of maturity in you already. You've got a lot of mastery in your skill already. You've got children already. You're already a father. So that's something you've taken on, that journey, building, knowing what it's like to lose in the middle of a crisis and how do you provide for your family. You've gone through all these things. Let's talk about legacy a little bit. You mentioned the business, working, time with family. Went 80 hours. Now we're talking 2 days a week. Talk a little bit about legacy, journey, that type of
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah, man. I want to be, I mean, I know it's such a cliched thing, but I mean, I truly do. I want to be among the best. It comes from being football, playing football as a kid and, you know, for whatever reason, telling myself in the backyard, I'm going to be in the Hall of Fame of football. I'm going to go win the Super Bowl. I'm going to, I just transferred all that energy and I put it all into barbecue, you know? I know it'll never happen, but in my head, I want a statue. I know that's absolutely ridiculous, but that's, I don't, and it's not about like being worshipped or anything about that. I just want to be appreciated,
Oh, there's
like
trophies for the barbecue competitions for sure. You might be.
I, that's a whole nother world, big dog. I,
I know.
we went to a barbecue competition and as good as we thought we were doing craft barbecue, dog, out of 70 teams, I think we were about 60th.
There's a whole different process, procedure, understanding. It takes a while. There are a lot of barbecue competitors that do open up their own restaurants eventually, which is interesting. But yes, it's competitive. That sounds like 60 is a good number for you to start at. You like being humbled before you achieve things.
Yeah, no, 100%. Look, man, I played football
Yeah.
and I'm only 5'8", 5'9", and I played on the line. So being humbled is a big thing,
Yeah, no, I know. I was a soccer player, and every
and
once in a while you have your bell ring, and you're like, okay, my bell was rang. But like, either I didn't go in hard enough, or I didn't do something right here. But that I cannot have my bell ring like that ever again.
yeah, but I will say one kind of saying that I always say and I tell myself and is like, when I first started working, I used to run around like crazy. I used to work so hard. And now I'm accomplishing everything that I was doing then, and I'm not working as hard. So one thing I always tell myself is like, if I have to run around to accomplish what I need to accomplish, I'm not saying there doesn't need to be a sense of urgency, but if I have to run around like a chicken with its head cut off, then maybe I'm not as good at this as I thought I was. I mean, obviously there's always going to be in the kitchen, there's always going to be some form of chaos, but it's controlled, you know? And then the other saying that I really like, and this just, talks about the legacy is a chef is only as good as the chefs he leaves behind. And, I have friends that I've trained in the pit room and I hope they look up to me. And I hope in the future when I train other pit masters, I hope they look up to me and I hope they call me even if they're at another barbecue spot and I hope they call me and they're like, look, man, this is what I'm struggling with. Can you give me some advice? Or, hey, like, I know you're in Fort Worth, I'm struggling with something. Will you just, come by my spot and, maybe you can help me out with this. I still do it to this day. One of my best friends, his name is Cody, best brisket cook I've ever cooked with. He's he's a big reason my brisket game exploded the way it did. And he just, he taught me a lot of the little details, He's like, oh, well, your brisket probably needs to be on a little longer before you wrap it. How about you flip it around? And I know that sounds so simple, but when you really don't know, when you don't know,
Yeah,
and
I
it's like,
know, right? Yeah.
oh my God, what an explosion. The next thing you know, my brisket game is tremendous, And I text him often sometimes and I'm like, I've been doing my brisket this way and I shouldn't have because of this, this, and this. And he'll respond and he'll be like, man, I'm so proud of you. Or My buddy Damon was probably the best rib cook I've ever cooked with, and I'm posting these pictures on social media, and he texts me. He's like, man, I'm not even gonna lie to you. You probably surpassed me in the rib game, big dog. He's like, I'm really proud of you. And so like, I hope I get that from other people when it's time for me to, go sit down somewhere.
Let's bring this in, like make it more tangible for the audience or those not in the barbecue game. The improvement of the game, the time period spent in it. How do you improve what you're doing? What are the measurables there for you? You talked about the ribs, you talked about the chicken, the brisket. Like, how do you know you're doing better? And how do you tweak it so you do better? What are the little tweaks? Because it's different than just adjusting the temperature or adding a little more salt, right?
Yeah, yeah, no. I mean, there's so much that goes into it, and the only way that you're going to get better at barbecue is cooking barbecue every single day. Okay? And then not only that, but go to someone else's barbecue spot, eat their food, and if you really like it, try to recreate that. The way I've learned to cook ribs is by cooking ribs every day and then eating a bone off of a rack of ribs every day. And it's like, okay, that was too tight. Goes next day, I cook it a little bit longer. Boom, nailed it. But you know what's wrong with that rack of ribs? They weren't red. They were a little darker in color. So it's like, okay, I'm gonna open the firebox door, and I'm gonna leave a smaller coal bed. I'm gonna have more fire rather than just smoking. Boom, my ribs are red. But they took longer to cook because I'm not putting off as much heat as I typically do because my pit door was open or my firebox door was open. Like it's little adjustments every single day. I mean, like I said with the brisket, I had the point facing the fire as I cooked it, and then it got through the stall. And after it got through the stall, Cody and I decided, all right, let's flip the brisket. So the point is facing the door. Now I'm pulling these briskets off closer to like 185 to wrap them and throw them back on. But the bark is so crispy. And not only that, now the fat on the brisket is coming out at like this translucent yellow and it tastes so good. So it's little adjustments every single time. And the only way you get better is just by doing it every single day and being a complete psycho.
Anything that you want to talk about, maybe preparing for the episode, maybe things you've thought about for coming on today that we didn't discuss that you want to talk about?
I mean, I encourage anybody that thinks about doing barbecue to just hop on in. I will say I want to salute the people that start their own barbecue restaurants or their own pop-ups or their own food trucks, because like I just could not do it. The way I'm too detail oriented. I'm not uptight, but at the same time I'm uptight about my product, and I'm such a perfectionist that I would go crazy. I was a general manager. I was in charge of people. I wasn't an owner, but I had responsibility. I didn't go all the way crazy, but I went a little crazy, and I just want to salute those people, the entrepreneurs, the people that are doing it by themselves every day, because it takes an absolute lot. And just keep pushing, just keep putting it out.
Love it. All right. I have another question for you. Let's talk about the motivation, the inspiration. You talked about, what happened at the Patriotic Pig, but let's talk about more than that, because there is a discipline of getting up every day, even though you may have worked too hard before. And I'm going to talk about wisdom in a second. But let's talk a little bit about this, because it is hard to get up every day. It is sometimes hard to call someone and ask them to cover for you because you don't want to let someone down. But there's some motivation and inspiration. We touched on it a little bit and where you got it from, and wanting to kick someone else's butt in the game. But there's also more than that. What is it? Maybe we talked about it a little in legacy. I don't
I
know,
mean,
but there's a
it's
fire in
it's
you.
it's a little bit of everything, you know. I
Greater
mean,
purpose,
I
maybe.
didn't. No, man. I'm that competitive. That's what makes me a kind of a psycho about this.
I like this a lot. Go on.
I look, honestly, man, I like to be really good and I like to talk my shit. Okay? Like like when I see Mark, oh, the guy that fired me, I want to be able to go shake his hand with a little bit of a smirk and be like, we could have done this together, big dog. You know what I'm saying? I want him to be very successful. I want him to have a good life, but I want to kick his ass. Same thing with her Tato barbecue, respectfully, because he's doing really good and he does great things. And, I have nothing but respect for them over there. I want them to do so good, but I want to kick his ass. Like I love every pitmaster that I work with at work. I love all the cutters. I love them so much. I want to be better than them. This is what gets me up in the morning. This is what has me talk about barbecue when I'm not at work. I text my boss Israel on the days that I'm off and I'm like, why don't we do things this way? Why don't we do things that way? Why don't we change this process? It's just because I love this shit. This is what I do. If I'm not thinking about barbecue on my days off, then it's probably because I'm cooking something on my own smoker. I love it. I love it when I put out really good food. I I love it when I put out something bad and I have the opportunity to learn something new. Like I want to be the best. And I know like I will never be the best. I know it's about it like a cuckoo goal. I don't want to be worshipped. That's what wakes me up in the morning. Like I want to be the best.
Anchor this a little bit for the audience and a little wisdom.
Okay.
And we talk about it a little bit in the podcast, but competition builds industries. Okay. Healthy. What do I mean? Let's look at sports, for example, not modern day basketball. Okay. Because now players jump around a little bit too much. So
Yeah.
there's not as much loyalty. So I can't watch the game as much for some reason. I don't like the loyalty. I still think football does better with that. Loyalty, yes. Do players get later in life and then bounce around a little bit? I think it's a nature of the way life is. But what I want to talk about is this. Everyone's like, oh, Michael Jordan wouldn't be Michael Jordan if he didn't get kicked off the team sophomore year or whatever of high school. True. Okay. It also helped that he grew 2 feet or whatever it was in like a year. Okay, so let's not ignore that. But what's more important is what happened in the mindset during that period is that it led to what would happen to UNC winning a championship. And then when he gets into NBA, even though everyone's hyping him as the greatest basketball player ever, he can't win a championship. He's getting served every day. He has to build a team now in professional sports where people are drinking, smoking, ladies, whatever at the time. Not to mention, if it wasn't for a Magic Johnson in the league and the Detroit Pistons as a whole, there would be no forging of Michael Jordan. That competition's that important. The competitive nature of individuals build industries. It built basketball. Without Michael Jordan, we don't have basketball. With the players that came in after him, Shaquille O'Neal's, all of those players, those legacies were built off of that hardship, someone being able to build an industry. So why am I anchoring this for the audience? Well, we talked a little bit about it before the podcast and pre-recording, but we'll just anchor it for everyone. Alan and I, but barbecue being as competitive as it is, having that nature, the volume that it attracts when it is done well and done by really great entrepreneurs that can handle queues, that can run good teams, that create loyalty. It has spread across the world. Barbecue is being built by an industry off not only the competitions of barbecue itself, but the competitions we're talking about. Why is that important? Well, there would be no fast food restaurants if McDonald's didn't have Burger King and Wendy's to compete with. Roy Kroc probably wouldn't have been as hardcore as he was because he would have no one to compete with. It's part of his game. What did he do? Why was it important? Because Ray Kroc's competitiveness led to the Ronald McDonald House, which has helped more kids on the planet than any other organization ever. Now you guys get my point? So why am I anchoring this with Alan's podcast, with this show? Because competition matters. Having a competitive nature matters in a healthy way. Do you want them to do well? Yes. Why is it important that your competitors do well? Because they squeeze you, they forge you, they push you to do better. They raise your boat as well as their own. That's important, guys. In any food game you're in, too many people are worried about the competition stealing this, that, stealing employees, whatever. It does not matter. No one will ever, ever, ever do it the way you do it, period. So that's the important lesson here, guys. Be competitive. Always be competing against yourself first, the version of you yesterday. And also be competitive with the world around you because it raises the world around you when it's done healthily. I don't even know if that's the right word or a word. It just came out of my mouth. But let's talk about that a little bit. Healthy competition. You're wanting everyone to succeed around you, even in loss.
Yeah,
I mean, you learned from loss, right?
No, 100%. I mean, right now I'm in this prove it stage of my career, right? Like before was the learning. Now I'm kind of in this, okay, Alan, I'm putting air quotes up with my hands. You're a pit master because I feel like, the same thing with being called a chef or being called a pit master. You can't really call yourself that you can't call yourself a chef until a chef calls you chef. You can't call yourself a pit master until a pit master calls you a pit master. And
It's true.
real quick,
for sure.
I do just want to talk about the NBA real quick. I know I'm jumping to the side, but
yeah, I love it. Let's do it.
I just want the Dallas Mavericks to know that I'm now a Laker fan.
Okay? Oh gosh, I get it. I get it.
My feelings are still hurt. It's been 4 weeks. All right. Anyways, man, healthy. I mean, competition is just what gets me going. And when I was working in Hurtado, I was in downtown Fort Worth, and I was next to Panther City Barbecue, who are absolute go to the game. I was next to Bricks Barbecue, who is really, really good, and they had different stuff on their menu, like I think it's porchetta, smoked porchetta. I don't know how to say it, but it's absolutely delicious. Okay. And they did really good. We had, who was it? Dane's Barbecue was still over there on 7th, and he won best, brisket smash burger in Fort Worth for like every year that I've been born, I guess. I mean, Smokeaholics was only 15 minutes. I mean, we're not just talking, I'm not just naming barbecue places. I'm naming places that have been mentioned in the Texas Monthly Top 50. I'm mentioning places that are absolute, goats in this barbecue game. And they're my neighbors. So like I have to get up and I have to put out good food because in Fort Worth, Texas, everybody has their favorite barbecue spot. So if they go to try your barbecue and you don't live up to it, not only is that person not going to come back, they're going to tell their 4 friends about it, and their 4 friends are not going to come. You have to want to get up and eat another person. Like you have to want to get up and kick somebody's ass. Or maybe that's just the way that I look at it.
It's a heavily competitive barbecue market in Texas for sure. I think that's part of the breeding nature. I would say it's no different than maybe the New York restaurant market and the forging of diamonds there in some ways, or Nashville now being so much pressure in show business as well as food and what it's creating there in the food business, and maybe even Orlando and those areas that felt the pressure of the boom and trying to get restaurants there as entrepreneurs and competing with chains. In this case, in Orlando, that was a big competition as Disney World and all them grew. So I think there's something there, the restaurateurs that come out of environments like this, the competitiveness, the pitmasters on a world scale competitively. I'm always interested in this particular case. It's one of the reasons barbecues become so front and center in a lot of ways is because it is going to become a world market, guys. It is going to become a world industry, and we have yet to see a chain or a franchise or a corporate visionary entrepreneur grow truly on a world level in this game. It's probably going to come from someone in Texas, I would guess, but I don't know. There's a lot of other barbecue places, Memphis, North Carolina, Mexico, even Hawaii. There's some examples of those type of barbecue places growing maybe internationally. But in this case, we're talking about something that's beyond any level in terms of volume coming out of restaurants that are Texas barbecue. The volume is serious. And when I talk about volume, I used to do hospital systems. That's the same type of volume we're kind of talking about here in some cases when it comes to feeding the amount of people we're feeding here in these restaurants. It's a big deal. It's something to pay attention to. And they have food systems and processes in play that are some of the best in the game right now. If you can move customers along, they're willing to pay a premium for a good product. You're offering a high quality product that cooks for a very long time, and yet you're generating lines, you're keeping your employees happy, and you're building an industry. There is no better place to be. But it takes, the reason that it matters is we're talking about apprenticeship and mastery. No matter what, no matter whether you have culinary training or not, no matter whether you started in your backyard or in a green egg or whatever it is, the same mastery when you go to the volumes to serve the public is true. It's not as easy as scalable as it is in your backyard. And so this industry takes mastery when we're talking about the barbecue food industry, even the beverages, even the sides. Constant mastery, and it's not like you can come up with a special out of the blue. You have to have stuff that cooks a long time, that matches what your customers want, that still moves people through a line quickly, which is kind of interesting considering it takes so long to cook, right? So
yeah,
let's talk about the last things, and I'm going to anchor it. Mentors, coaches, maybe in football. This will be my last question. Anyone like that that truly has mattered in your life or taught you a lesson? You've talked about sort of in the business world, some individuals, especially currently, that have had influence, but let's talk about it on a greater level. Let's talk about instilling some of this in you, this competitiveness, these things, because it's not only that it was there, it was encouraged, fostered, grown in you. That's why it's still there. So let's go there.
I mean, as far as coworkers and mentors, I mean, like I said, my buddy Cody, he's now at Vaqueros Barbecue, absolute, best brisket cook that I've ever worked with. And, he's a real reason that I elevated my brisket game the way that it is. Like, now I feel like I can go cook brisket anywhere, and I know that I'm going to put out the best product that can be put out from whatever wood or whatever smoker that I'm using. After that, I mean, I don't know if I've had a lot of mentors per se, because most positions that I've been put in this barbecue game, it's really been like, here's the smoker, here's the wood, here's the seasoning, thumbs up, pat on the back, you got this, bud. But there's been people that have given me actual feedback, right? And that's what matters. Like I've said before, feedback matters to me. I can't get better unless you tell me what I'm sucking at. And my boss, when I became GM at Hurtado, was Creighton, and he spoke very plainly to me. He told me how it was. And now my cooking didn't necessarily get better, but the way I dealt with people and the way that I looked at systems and how the way things should work in a restaurant, how it should move, that changed. And then when I got to Roy Hutchins, like I said, my man Israel, he's always been straightforward with me. And that's really allowed me to become I feel like right now I'm one of the best versions of my pitmaster self that I could be. And I still feel like there's so much more that I could be doing, so I don't know if I have mentors per se, but I have people around me that will look at me and tell me like, yeah, that brisket wasn't good, dog. What happened? And that's what matters to me the most.
Let's
And
flip.
then I mean, last and foremost, my wonderful fiance who has dealt with me through all of this. I mean, we were in a tiny apartment, and like I said, I was going to work before I woke up, and I was not getting home until after it was dark. And she was dealing with a newborn baby and a 1-year-old that were bored out of their mind in a tiny apartment, trying to keep it clean, trying to keep, dealing with postpartum and all that. And, I'm exhausted, so I'm not really trying to listen and, being young and dumb. So, I mean, absolute shout out to her because without her, I would have quit a long time ago.
Let's flip the script here as we close out, flip the coin a little bit, if you will. Let's talk about now how you mentor, lead everyone, because I think that that's where we are. I think calling you a pitmaster also means from another pitmaster as also your leadership skills have been legitimized, because if it's going across the board, it means you're leading your team well. Let's talk about how you lead others.
Yeah, I think, when I was working at Hurtado Barbecue, that's when I was officially leading people. That's when I got the title, right? That's when I got the power. Okay. One of my buddies, and I guess you could call this guy a mentor. I'm sorry that I missed out on saying him, but his name is Jude. He's a big old, he's a big old dude. He's a pastor, but he also cooks barbecue. And anyways, me and him used to kind of get into it when I was the boss and he was the night cook.
The
And
pitmaster pastor. I love it.
yeah,
Yeah.
man, he's an absolute awesome guy. But you would tell me, he was like, Alan, you're kind of a dick. He's like, but you do get shit done. And I was like, man, I'm just trying to, I want to create a system, leading so everybody takes care of everybody, and at that point I was kind of leading. I got the job because everybody respected me and everybody wanted me to be in that position. I had influence. But when I got the job, I was leading with power more than I was leading with influence, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I've been there
Yeah.
for sure.
Mhm. And so I had to learn how to balance that. My biggest problem at that location was that we had so many heavy hitters in a small building that I felt like if I was working alongside that person, I was taking money away from it because I was like, well, if I'm doing it, what are they going to do? Then if they're not doing it, why are they on my labor percentage? And like it's true, like it's not wrong, but I shouldn't have thought of it like that. You know, now, I'm not necessarily anybody's boss. Right now, all I'm doing is I'm trying to rebuild that influence. So when it's time for me to be called a pit boss, which I'm hoping isn't like a year or 2 years, that I'll be able to lead with influence rather than with power. That I'll sit there and I will stack wood with somebody. I'll drain the pits. I'll trim. I'll season. I'll do the stuff that nobody else wants to do, and I'll be the best at that. If that's what makes them happy, because I feel like the leader I want to be, you know, I want to take care of those people, so they want to take care of me. you know, so I was still a really kick-ass GM, but I do see the error in my ways.
Yeah, I get it. What is a pit boss? Just define it for the audience for me real quick.
Yeah, so I mean, the way that I see a pit boss, the pit boss is the pit master at that location. Okay, now when you take a tour or whatever, they might introduce everybody in that pit room as a pit master, but not everybody there is a pit master. You have a pit master, and then you have the guys that help. Okay, now you might have a pit boss, a pit master, and the guys that help. The pit boss is the guy that touches everything that goes out. Okay, he's going to be a part of the trimming process. Okay, he's going to know what time they went on. Okay, maybe he wasn't there when the food, the brisket got put on, but he's going to be there when the brisket comes off. He's going to stack the wood. He's going to drain the pits. He is the absolute center of that pit room. He is the heartbeat. He is everything to everybody in that pit room. But at the same time, he's the guy that's holding everybody's hand, and he's putting into every individual employee in that pit room to help them grow, help them become pit masters, and then help them eventually become pit bosses, whether it's at that company or at another one. Because like I said, the ultimate, measure of being a great chef or a great pit master is how many great pit masters that you put out after you. So that's the way I look at being a pit boss.
Awesome. Thank you, Alan, for today. Thank you for your time. Where can they find you online? Where can they find the restaurant online? Where can they find the locations of the restaurant so they can try the food that you're creating? Where's all that good stuff?
Yeah. So, my name is Alan Curtis. I do post every day on Instagram at something underscore barbecue, SOMETI or THING underscore BBQ. Please follow me there. And then the company that I work for is the original Roy Hutchins Barbecue in Trophy Club, Texas. Man, y'all come visit. If y'all are ever coming in to the DFW area and you're like, I want to get barbecue, you need to come to Roy Hutchins. There are plenty of great barbecue places all across the DFW. They all have their own great distinct taste. But nobody puts on a show. No one treats you better and has the high quality of Texas barbecue like we do. Come in, ask for a pit tour. We will treat you like family, and we will love you like family. Yeah.
Thank you, Alan, for your time. I really appreciate it. I can't wait to do a part 2. I will definitely be reaching out to you and sending you some more questions as I reflect on this, and the audience will probably send questions as well for you. So I'll keep you on the know for that. And anyone in the audience, if you got questions, again, DM, email, anything like that. You can use Facebook as well. That works. And then there is a text. You can text them to the phone number in Better with Bacon Fat on Instagram. So if you have questions for entrepreneurs, just list the episode that you're referring to, the entrepreneur who's on there, and the questions you have when they come back on. So thank you guys. I love you guys. I appreciate all of you listening in, and we're out.